That cockroach you saw last night, darting under the stove, the one that froze in the light, then vanished into the crack by the baseboard, you can be done with him by the weekend. For about $1, not a poison, not a trap, not some $40 spray with a name you can't pronounce, white vinegar, the same jug sitting in your cupboard right now, my people have used it for generations. Long before the English had a store on every corner selling a different bottle for every bug. We never bought any of that. We never needed to. And here is the part that will sit wrong with you once you see it. There is an entire industry that makes its living on you not knowing what I am about to tell you. They have no reason to teach you. A man does not sell you a $50 treatment when a $1 jug does the same work. I grew up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Plain house, plain barn, a cellar that stayed cool all summer. My grandfather kept a stone crock of cider vinegar by the back door and a jug of clear white vinegar on the shelf above the wash basin. That clear jug was his medicine cabinet for the whole house. Ants on the sill, mice in the grain room, spiders in the corner of the porch. He had an answer for every one, and it never came in a box with a warning label. So before we go further, do me one small favor. Tell me, down in the comments, which one is your battle right now? Roaches, ants, spiders, mice, or bedbugs? Just type the word, I read them, and the answer changes a little depending on which pest is crawling through your house tonight. Stay with me, because right around the middle of this, I am going to show you the exact thing my grandfather did to clear a mouse problem out of a grain room for less than the price of a cup of coffee. The English pay a man in a truck to do it. We did it with a rag and a jug. You will want that one. Now let me show you why this works at all, because once you understand it, you will never look at that jug the same way again. Let us start with the roaches, since that is the one that makes folks feel ashamed even when it is not their fault. Here is the truth about a roach. He does not see the world the way you do. He tastes it and he smells it with his feet and his feelers. He follows invisible trails of scent that other roaches leave behind, like a wagon following ruts in a dirt road. That is how they all end up in the same crack behind your stove. One found it, and he laid down a road for the rest. White vinegar is acetic acid and water. That sour smell is the acid lifting into the air. When you wipe down a surface with it, you are not just cleaning, you are erasing the road. The scent trail is gone. The next roach comes along and finds nothing to follow. He wanders. He gets lost. And a lost roach is a roach that does not breed in your kitchen. So here is exactly how you do it. Mix it half and half. 1 part white vinegar, 1 part warm water, in a spray bottle you can get for $1. Every night before bed, you wipe the counters, the stove edges, the baseboards near the sink, and that dark gap where the dishwasher meets the cabinet. Not once. Every night for 2 weeks. You are not killing them all in a night. You are starving them of the map they use to find food and each other. And here is the number that ought to make you angry. Researchers who study cockroaches have found that a single female German cockroach and her young can lead to more than 30,000 roaches in a single year. 30,000 from one. That is why the spray you bought never finished the job. You killed the 10 you could see. The map was still on your floor, calling the other ones in, but cleaning the trail is only half the work. Therefore, you have to think about where they drink, because a roach can go a long while without food, but not without water. That dripping pipe under the sink, the ring of damp around the base of the toilet, wipe those down with straight white vinegar, no water added, 2 or 3 times a week. The acid does something the watered-down version cannot. It cuts the slime, the thin film of grime and moisture that they feed on in the dark. Take away the road, take away the drink, and you have taken away the 2 things that made your home a home to them. Now, you are wondering about the eggs, and you are right too, because this is where most folks quit too early. A roach egg case is a hard little brown capsule. It is built to survive. Most sprays roll right off it. But a roach mother glues that case in tight, dark, narrow places, and she uses scent to pick the spot. When you keep wiping those hidden seams with vinegar, week after week, she stops choosing your kitchen. There is no welcoming smell. she moves on to the neighbor who still believes the only answer comes in a can. So that handles the roach, but the same jug handles a creature that marches in a straight line right across your counter in broad daylight, and the science behind it is even simpler. Ants. The little black ones that show up at the same spot every spring, like they own a deed to your kitchen. I want you to watch them sometime. Really watch. They walk nose to tail in a line, never wandering. That line is pure scent. The scouts go out, they find your sugar bowl or a crumb under the toaster, and on the way home they drag their belly and lay down a chemical trail. Every ant after that just follows the smell. It is the most orderly thing in nature, and it is happening on your countertop. White vinegar breaks that line like a flood washes out a road. Find where they are coming in, usually a crack by a window, a gap under a door, a line in the grout. Spray it down, full strength, right on the line of ants and right on the path behind them. Wipe it with a cloth. Then spray the entry point again and leave it to dry. You just deleted their map. The scouts come back out and the road is gone. They have to start over from nothing, do it for 3 or 4 days in a row at the same time of evening, and you break the whole supply chain. The colony forgets your house exists. Here is what the people selling you ant bait will never put on the box. The bait works slow on purpose. It is meant to be carried back to the nest over days, and while you wait, the line keeps marching. A study out of the land-grant extension folks who study household ants found that the trail pheromone these ants lay can keep pulling workers to a food source even after the food is gone. The smell outlasts the crumb. So you can clean up every speck of sugar and still watch them parade in, because the invisible road is still painted on your floor. Vinegar is the only cheap thing in your house that erases the road itself. And there is a second trick here my mother swore by. A cut lemon rind has a little of this same effect, but vinegar is stronger and it does not rot on your sill. Wipe the windowsills where they enter once a week through the spring, even when you do not see them, and they never get their first foothold. Prevention costs you 10 seconds. The infestation costs you a whole season of frustration, but ants and roaches walk in. The next one drops down on a thread from your ceiling and builds a trap in the corner while you sleep. Spiders. Now, I will be honest with you the way a plain man should. A spider is not all bad. He eats the very pests we have been talking about. My grandfather would carry one outside in his bare hand before he would squash it. But nobody wants a web across the doorway, or that creeping feeling on the back of the neck, or a brown one near where the grandchildren play. A spider does not have a nose like ours. He tastes and smells through his legs and through tiny hairs on his body. Strong, sour smells overwhelm him. He will not set up a web where the whole area reeks of acid, because to him it is like trying to sleep next to a clanging bell. It drowns out everything he needs to sense his prey. So you mix it a little stronger for spiders, 2 parts white vinegar to 1 part water. You spray the corners of the ceiling, the window frames, the door frames, the spots up under the porch eave where they love to anchor a web. You hit the dark corner of the basement and the gap behind the garage door. They do not like to cross it. They do not like to build on it. And the webs you spray will loosen and come down with a broom the next day because the vinegar weakens the sticky anchor lines. Once a week along the outside door frames in late summer, when they are all trying to come in for the cool, and you keep them out at the threshold instead of fighting them in your living room. Now, I told you a roach reads the floor, and an ant reads the line, and a spider reads the air. You are starting to see the pattern. Almost every pest in your house is run by its nose. And vinegar is a fog that blinds every one of them. Hold on to that, because the next creature is the one that scares people the most, and it is the reason I made this whole thing. Mice. Here is what nobody tells you about a mouse. He can squeeze through a gap the width of a pencil, a hole the size of a dime. If you can fit a finger, a mouse can fit his whole body, because his skull is the only hard part and the rest of him folds like a sock. That is why you plug one hole and he finds another. You are not fighting one mouse. You are fighting his ability to read your house through his whiskers and his nose. And a mouse hates the smell of vinegar. To us, it is sharp. To a creature that navigates almost entirely by scent, walking up to a strong vinegar smell is like us walking into a wall of smoke. Everything in him says danger, turn back. And before I show you exactly what he did, I want to tell you where you can find every one of these methods written down in one place. I put all of it into a field guide called The Garden Blueprint Old-Fashioned Pest Cures That Cost Pennies. Every remedy in this video, and dozens more that did not fit here, are laid out step by step the way my grandfather taught them. It is part of a complete set we put together called the Complete Garden Field Edition, and you can find the link down in the description. It is the kind of book you keep on the shelf next to the vinegar jug, not buried in a drawer. Now, back to the grain room and the trick that cost my grandfather less than a cup of coffee. This is the one I promised you. The one my grandfather did in the grain room. We had a room off the barn where we kept feed, and feed brings mice the way a lantern brings moths. He did not buy a single trap that year. He took rags, old worn-out cloths from the rag bag, the kind you keep because throwing away a good piece of cloth is a small sin in our house. He soaked them in straight white vinegar, not watered down, straight from the jug. He tucked one rag into every gap he could find, the hole by the pipe, the gap under the door, the corner where the foundation met the wood. Then he set a couple in shallow tin lids along the wall where they ran. Within a week the running stopped. Within 2, they were gone. And every few days he would freshen the rags with a splash from the jug, because once the smell fades, the mouse gets brave again. That was the whole secret. Total cost, a jug of vinegar and a handful of rags he already owned. The English pay a man in a truck $200 and up to do less. Now I can hear the doubter in you. You are thinking a smell will not stop a mouse forever. And you are right. The smell is the first wall. It tells him to go elsewhere while you do the second thing, which is closing the doors he uses. So here is the full method. You find the holes. You stuff each one with steel wool, the metal scouring pad from your sink, because a mouse cannot chew through metal the way he chews through foam and wood. Then you soak a rag in vinegar and pack it in over the steel wool. The metal blocks the body. The vinegar blocks the nose so he does not even come close enough to try. Do that around the whole base of your house in a single Saturday afternoon and refresh the vinegar rags once a week through the fall when they are all looking for a warm place to winter. You will sleep without that scratching in the wall, and let me name the cost of doing nothing because it is bigger than a chewed bag of flour. A mouse leaves droppings everywhere he walks. He gnaws on wood and on wire. The fire marshals in this country will tell you that rodents chewing wires are blamed for a real share of house fires every year, fires nobody can ever fully explain. That $2 jug is not just saving you a flour bag. It is cheap insurance for the whole house. So we have handled the floor, the counter, the corner, and the wall. But there is one pest left that does none of those things. It lives in the one place you cannot give up. Your bed, bedbugs. Just the word makes people itch. And I will tell you plainly, this is the hardest one, and I will not lie to you and say a jug of vinegar wipes out a full infestation by itself. A man who promises you that is the same kind of man who sold you the $40 spray. But vinegar earns its place in this fight, and most folks do not know how. A bedbug is flat, thin as a card. He hides in the seams of your mattress, the cracks in the bed frame, behind the headboard, in the folds of the box spring. He comes out at night, drawn by the warmth and the breath of a sleeping body. By day, you would never find him. Acetic acid hurts him on contact. When you spray full-strength white vinegar directly onto a bedbug and the spot where he hides, it disrupts the thin coating that holds his moisture in. It is not a poison in the chemical sense. It is more like the way salt draws water out of meat. It stresses his body and drives him out of hiding. So here is how it earns its keep. You strip the bed, you spray straight vinegar into every seam of the mattress, every joint of the frame, the cracks in the headboard, and along the baseboards behind the bed. You are driving them out of the deep cracks where sprays and powders cannot reach. You flush them into the open. Then the heat does the killing. You wash all the bedding in the hottest water your machine allows, and you dry it on high heat, because heat above a certain point kills bedbugs at every stage, eggs included. The vinegar is the beater that flushes the birds from the brush. The hot dryer is the thing that finishes them. Use them together, repeat it every few days for a few weeks, and you knock a small problem down before it becomes the kind that empties your wallet. Because the English pay companies $1,000 and more to heat treat a single house for bedbugs. $1,000 caught early with a jug and a hot dryer. You may never see that bill. Now, I have been talking as if you are starting fresh, and I know many of you are not. You have lived in your house 20, 30, 40 years. You are sitting there thinking, this is fine for a young couple in a new place, but my home is settled, my habits are set, my cracks are old, my problems are old. I have something just for you, and I want you to hear it clearly, because this is the part most videos skip. An old house is not a harder house to protect. It is an easier one. You already know where the trouble comes from. You know which window the ants find every May. You know the corner of the cellar where the spiders gather. You know the spot under the kitchen sink that always smells a little of damp. You have decades of knowing exactly where the enemy walks. A new homeowner is guessing. You are not. So here is what you do this very weekend. With nothing but the jug you already own and an old rag. Walk your house slow, the way my grandfather walked the barn every evening at dusk. Start at the foundation outside. Look for every gap where a pipe or a wire goes into the house. Those are the highways. Wipe each one with straight vinegar, and where there is a real hole, pack it with steel wool and a vinegar rag. Then come inside and go to the places you already know. That ant window, wipe the sill and the frame. The spider corner, spray it down. The damp spot under the sink. Wipe it dry and wipe it sour. You are not treating your whole house. You are treating the 6 or 8 spots that 30 years of living have already taught you. That is the gift of an old home. It has been telling you its weak points for decades. Most folks just never listened and do this. Take 1 cup of white vinegar, 1 cup of water, and a tablespoon of dish soap and mix it in your spray bottle. The soap makes the vinegar stick to surfaces longer instead of running off and drying in a minute. My mother added a little soap to everything for exactly this reason, though she would have called it plain sense, not chemistry. That one change makes a settled, established home hold the treatment far longer between sprayings. You do it once a week instead of every night. Now, I promised you escalation, and here it is, because the longer I talk, the angrier this part makes me on your behalf. When I was a boy, no one in my community owned more than 1 or 2 products to handle the whole house. We did not have a shelf in the barn with 12 different bottles. We had vinegar, we had salt, we had lime and baking soda, we had a few dried herbs. That was the arsenal, and it ran a working farm with animals and feed and a cellar full of food, the very things that draw pests the hardest. Now go walk the aisle at the big store, count the bottles. There is a different spray for ants, a different one for roaches, a different one for spiders, a separate bait, a separate fogger, a separate granule for the yard, a separate plug-in for the wall, each one with its own price. Each one promising it is the only thing that works. And every single one of those companies knows that the sour jug 2 aisles over in the cooking section for $1 and some change does most of what their whole shelf claims to do. They are not lying to you exactly. They are just very quiet about the cheap thing. Quiet is how a whole industry gets built on you not knowing. My grandfather used to say the loudest salesman is selling the thing you need the least. He never read a marketing book in his life. He just watched men come through selling miracle products and watched those same products fail the next season, while his jug of vinegar never once let him down. So let me give you more of these quickly now, because 35 was the promise and I keep my promises. For fruit flies in the kitchen in late summer, fill a small jar with apple cider vinegar, cover it with plastic wrap, and poke a few small holes. The smell of fermenting fruit calls them in, the holes let them down, and they cannot find their way back out. It clears a kitchen in 2 days. We caught them this way over the fruit cellar every single August. For the gnats in your houseplants, that same vinegar jar set on the soil draws the adults, and a thin layer of sand on top of the soil stops the new ones from hatching out. Cheap and quiet, the way it should be. For the wasps building under your porch eve in spring, before the nest gets big, a spray of equal vinegar and water knocks down a new nest, and the scouts looking to start one, do it at dusk when they are slow and wear long sleeves and stand back. We always cleared the small ones early, before they became the kind that chases a child across the yard. For flies in the kitchen, a small bowl of vinegar with a drop of soap by the window draws them, and the soap breaks the surface so they cannot stand on it. They come to the smell and they go down. For silverfish, those little gray things in your books and your closet, wipe the shelves and the baseboards with vinegar, because they are drawn to damp and they navigate by scent just like the rest, and the sour smell drives them out of the dark seams. For moths in the pantry, wipe down every shelf with straight vinegar after you throw out the bag they got into, because they leave a scent that calls the next ones the same as ants do, and washing it away breaks the cycle that keeps them coming back to your flower. For the slugs in the garden bed by the back door, a spray of vinegar and water hits them directly, though keep it off your good plants, because the acid that stops a pest can also burn a tender leaf. We always kept it for the path and the foundation, not the vegetables themselves. For the ant hills along the walk, a kettle of hot water with 2 cups of vinegar poured straight down the hole reaches deeper than any granule sitting on top. We did this to the mounds along the garden fence every spring. For the cat or the dog that keeps marking the same corner, vinegar removes the scent that calls them back to that spot, the same way it removes the ant trail. They mark where they smell themselves. Erase the smell, you break the habit. For the mosquitoes that gather where water sits, dumping the standing water is the real cure, but wiping the rims of your rain barrels and your bird baths with vinegar keeps the slime down that their young feed on. You see the thread running through every one of these. The smell, the trail, the scent, these creatures live and die by. We are not poisoning them. We are confusing them. We are taking away the invisible map they all depend on, and we are doing it with the cheapest thing in the kitchen. Now I want to give you the one I saved for last. The one I learned was actually written down in the old agricultural papers, the kind of thing the plain people kept doing while the outside world forgot it ever worked. Most folks use vinegar cold, straight from the jug, sprayed at room temperature. And it works fine that way, as you have heard. But my grandfather did something I thought was just his own peculiar habit until I was a grown man. For the worst jobs, the deep cracks where the roaches hid and the runs where the mice traveled, he would heat the vinegar first, not boiling. Just hot, the way you would warm water for tea and let it sit a minute. For years I figured it was just an old man's way. But there is a real reason, and the science backs the old habit exactly. When you warm acetic acid, more of it lifts into the air as vapor. That sharp, sour smell that confuses and repels every pest we have talked about, the vapor is the active part, and heat releases far more of it. A warm vinegar treatment fills the cracks with the scent the cold one only touches. It reaches into the deep, narrow places the spray cannot physically get to because the vapor goes where the liquid stops. So here is the finale, the thing to do this weekend that almost nobody out there knows. Take a cup of white vinegar, warm it on the stove until it just starts to steam. No need to boil it. Carefully pour it into your spray bottle or a small heat-proof dish. For the spray, go straight to your worst spot, the crack behind the stove, the gap where the mice run, the seam of the bed frame, and treat it warm. For the dish, set the hot, open dish in a cabinet or a closet you want to clear, and let the rising vapor do the work overnight in a closed space where the smell can build. The warm vapor settles into every crack you cannot reach with a cloth. It is the difference between cleaning the doorway and filling the whole room. The old farm papers from more than 100 years ago noted that warmed vinegar carried its strength further than cold. The plain people never stopped doing it. The outside world, busy buying 12 bottles, simply forgot. That is the secret my grandfather kept by the back door, and now it is yours. Take a step back and look at what just happened here. For your whole adult life, you have been handed a problem and sold a separate, expensive answer for every version of it. A bottle for this, a bottle for that, a man in a truck for the rest. And the whole time, sitting in your own cupboard, was a jug that did nearly all of it for $1. You did not lose that knowledge because it stopped working. You lost it because nobody profits from reminding you. My people never lost it, not because we are clever, but because we never had the money to be wasteful, and we never had a store close enough to make us forget. Necessity kept the old knowledge alive in our hands while the rest of the world paid to have it taken away. You are not the kind of person who keeps overpaying once you have seen the trick. You proved that by watching this far. You are the kind who would rather do it yourself, honest and cheap, with something you already own than be sold the same fix 4 different ways. So here is what I am asking. Go back up to the comment box and tell me which one you are fighting tonight. Roaches, ants, spiders, mice, or bedbugs. Type the word, just the one word, because I read them and I answer, and the next person scrolling needs to know they are not alone in it. Do not just think it, write it down where I can see it. And if you would like to keep recovering these old ways, the plain answers, the outside world buried under a shelf of bottles, then come walk along with us. This is not about following a channel. It is about a group of us remembering together what our grandparents never had to be taught because they simply never forgot. Next time, I am going to show you the one thing my grandmother kept in a cloth bag in the flour barrel that kept weevils and bugs out of the grain for an entire winter without a single chemical. It is sitting in most of your spice racks right now, and you have walked past it 1,000 times. Bring your jug of vinegar, bring an open mind, and I will see you there. Until then, keep that jug close and trust the old way. I'm Eli, and if you're still with me, this is for you. Inside the Amish field circle, I share the full pest-by-pest vinegar protocol, picking up right where this video stopped. You can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You belong here with old ways growers like you. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime with one click. If these simple vinegar tricks helped you, there's plenty more waiting right here. Take a moment to subscribe, then look around the channel for more easy, natural ways to keep pests away.